got your ass kicked.
Don't be conservative. Tell me I got my ass kicked.
You
that's
did.
What I want to hear.
42 points. Do I need to say anything else?
What happened in this game? I don't think Draymond should have been suspended at all.
Are you out of your damn mind? You are out of your damn mind.
Hey, Josh, can you smell?
Really?
Back to SmackDown.
And completely stolen Cody Rhodes' WrestleMania moment. This is total. No, you don't get to talk right now.
Oh, really?
No.
You don't get to talk.
No.
I am projecting. That's what I do with the media. You guys are afraid to put your freaking takes out there. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
You, again, just
you don't know how sports media works. This is my job. And we are back. It is a new intro, new season. Welcome back. We are live. Championship rings. Brandon Lewis from Brandon's World. Josh Ungar from the Unger to the Max YouTube channel. Josh, it is NFL season time, baby.
Yes, we are less than 10 days away. Next Thursday, September 5th, from Arrowhead Stadium, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens take on Patrick Mahomes and the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of the AFC Championship.
So, as always, we are in collaboration with the one, the only Voltage Live. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Championship Rings 216. You can follow us on X at Rings Champion, Instagram at Rings Champion, as well as Facebook at Rings Champion 216. Tonight on the docket, we will preview WWE Bash in Berlin. We will give our entire 2024 NFL predictions, including the winners of each division, every playoff team, Super Bowl, playoffs, and awards as well. Before we do, Josh, we had some news that just broke yesterday.
Yeah. Jerry Jones actually paid up. Shout out to my man JTuck151. We'll get in touch next week because I know you want to do a video collab with me, but he's a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, so I'm sure he's very excited about this because I thought this whole CeeDee Lamb situation was going to last into the season and he would not play in week 1 against us on September 8th. But here we are.
I think Dallas and Jerry Jones knew the whole time that they need to get this deal done with CeeDee Lamb because, as I've been saying, and when we talk about the NFC East in the next segment, we go over our NFL preview predictions, I will be discussing this, that without CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas Cowboys offense is a pop gun offense. Brandon Cooks, to me, is not the same receiver he once was. He may be a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. They really don't have anybody else. Tony Pollard is now out the door there in Dallas. So if CeeDee Lamb does not play or something were to happen to CeeDee, I think it's a risk by the Cowboys. And we all know that Jerry Jones is out here trying to sabotage Dak Prescott because he doesn't want to pay Dak. I don't know what's going on with that situation. But out of Dak, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb, generally, in most cases, you don't want to pay wide receiver big boy money, but CeeDee Lamb absolutely deserved this contract, and I think it was only a matter of time. Again, could he have sat out week 1? I agree with you. It was possible. This does not change my outlook on not only that game at Cleveland, which I know we will go in depth about next Tuesday, where they're in championship rings. Not only does not change my opinion about that game, it doesn't change my opinion about the Cowboys season at all.
I mean, their whole moniker going into this season was what? All in. And we weren't sure what that meant because they didn't do anything throughout free agency or really for the most part in the draft. And I guess all in, really, by how their offseason has gone, means we're putting all our poker chips into the middle. You guys have to prove yourself. Think about it. Mike McCarthy on the last year of his deal. Dak Prescott on the last year of his deal. Micah Parsons, he wants a contract extension. And there's a laundry list of other guys who are on the last year of their deals. So really, this season is all or nothing for the Dallas Cowboys.
And I'll tell you what, again, CeeDee Lamb got his money. He absolutely deserved it. I don't know why this took Jerry Jones so long. I think Jerry tries to think that, the Cowboys are in Texas. There's no state tax. They're America's team, the branding and all that. CeeDee's going to take a discount. If he would have got this deal done, because the deal is actually very similar to what A.J. Brown signed and what Devontae Smith signed and what Jalen Waddle signed and even Justin Jefferson. It's just there is more guaranteed money and more money up front for CeeDee because he was signed 3 or 4 months after those guys have already been signed.
And think about the ramifications of this for other wide receivers. There's a certain disgruntled wide receiver in San Francisco that this could have major ramifications on. I think you know who I'm talking about there, Brandon Ayuk. And I'm sure there's other wide receivers across the league that this could affect as well.
Potentially Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, even
Yep.
though he did sort of a hold in, not really a hold out. He's back at practice. Somebody brought it up today. I think Jamar Chase is going to play this year out and then go next year and see if he can top Justin Jefferson for the highest paid receiver in the NFL. But CeeDee Lamb only had 1 year left on his contract. Again, Dallas had to get this deal done. Maybe a bit surprising it happened this late. I did not think that Jerry Jones was going to let this go into week 1.
Given Dallas's history, I also didn't think it could last into week 1. But again, given how everything has played out this offseason for the Dallas Cowboys, it would not have surprised me in the least if it had gone into week 1.
Well, here's the question. And again, this is all a moot point now because he has signed his contract. But, was Jerry hoping that CeeDee would, we'd get to this point? The last, cut down day was today. Preseason has ended. Did Jerry think, CeeDee's going to cave? CeeDee's not going to want to miss his first game check? Because we know in the NFL, if you don't pay, it's not like the NBA and MLB. In the NFL, if you don't play, you don't get paid. And they only get paid game checks, which is now 17 games a year, going to be 18 games in a few years. But was Jerry hoping, CeeDee's going to wait till the last second and then cave because he doesn't want to miss a game check?
He might have been thinking that. I can see what you're saying. But, I mean, you look at the wide receiver market now, and you see how valuable the wide receiver is to the quarterback.
They're making double and sometimes triple of the running back position. McCaffrey is the highest paid back in the NFL. What's his average? Like $15 million a year or something like that.
I'd have to look it up.
Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson are easily over $30 million.
Yeah, I mean, look at Calvin Ridley, who got a massive contract with the Tennessee Titans this offseason.
Indeed. All right. Well, we've talked about CeeDee Lamb. We're going to talk about him a little bit more in a little bit, but it is time, Josh. It is time to dive in to our full 2024 NFL season preview. Where approximately over the next 90 minutes, you and I are going to dive in. We're going to make our picks from 4-1 for every division. We're going to talk about the playoff seeding. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. We're going to give our Super Bowl prediction. And then once we do all that, we're also going to give our predictions for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, both offensive and rookie defensive players of the year, Coach of the Year, and then a little bit of an interesting one, which will be who will be the first coach fired. So strap in and let's start with the AFC East, where I don't think Josh, this is going to be a lot of controversy for who is going to be at the bottom of this division. I think me and you both generally agree it's going to be the New England Patriots. I have the Patriots, for the record, at 2-15, tied for the worst record in the National Football League. And that is regardless if Drake May starts, if it's Jacoby Brissett, if it's the kid Milton from Tennessee who's shown some flashes in the preseason. To me, and I've said it all offseason, I almost feel bad for Gerard Mayo. I don't get it. And I would have gone with an offensive mind like Ben Johnson. I think New England is in a total rebuild. They have a couple nice running backs in Ramondre Stevenson. They have a okay slot receiver in that Douglas kid who popped a little bit last year, but not a ton of talent there. A lot of their talent's older on the defense side of the ball. I just think they're in a complete rebuild up there in Foxborough.
Shout out to my man Jesse Almeida. I've done a couple Boston Celtics versus Cleveland Cavaliers video collaborations with him. He's a huge Boston fan. So he's got the Patriots at the bottom going 4-13.
So you have them with 2 more wins than I do. Because again, I have them at 2-15. So let me then reveal my full AFC East, Josh, and then I'll go to you. So in third place, this is where we may disagree on the rest of the division.
Okay.
In third place, I have just barely missing the playoffs at 9-8, the Buffalo Bills. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back this year. Matt Milano, their great linebacker, got injured in preseason. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost Jordan Poyer. They obviously traded away Stephon Diggs. I get they sold James Cook, and I really like Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. I think both those tight ends are going to have a really good year. But I think this team is still too Josh Allen dependent, and I don't think they're going to have the offense capable enough to win enough games to qualify for the postseason in the AFC. Though, again, I think they'll be there battling the last week of the season.
Okay. So
at number two, at 11-6, I have this team as a wild card team in the AFC, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, to me, it's a rinse and repeat from a year ago. They're going to get out to a fast start. They're going to struggle at the end of the season. They go to Green Bay. They go to Cleveland, and they go to the Jets in December. Those are 3 automatic losses to me on their schedule. I think Tua will have a good year. I think Tyreek Hill will have a good year. Jalen Waddle, all the offensive pieces. Defensively, they've lost a little bit, but they did gain Jordan Poyer from Buffalo. They did lose Vic Fangio. They're going to have a new defensive coordinator. But I just think the Dolphins have too much talent on the side of the ball that matters in today's NFL to not at least win games in 2024. And that leads to the number 1 team in the AFC East. And I've gone back and forth on it. I don't even feel confident in it, to be completely honest with you. But I've said it since March. They are now actually favored to win the AFC East as of yesterday. I bet them when they were 3rd in the AFC East to win the division. Mr. Ayahuasca himself, Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, who will win the tiebreaker with the Dolphins by defeating them in Week 18, being 11-6, having a better division record, and winning the AFC East. Brees Hall is back. They added Mike Williams, even though he may or may not play Week 1. Injuries be damned. He's a good number 2 compliment to Garrett Wilson. The Hassan Reddick stuff, I don't even know if the Jets need him. I think their defense is just too good. And they won 7 games a year ago with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian and whoever the hell else was under center for that team. I think a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, they may lose Week 1 against San Francisco. Then their schedule gets pretty easy for the next few weeks. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets do finally win the AFC East for the first time since 2002.
Wow. All right. So I agree that the Patriots will finish last in the division. I actually have them going 5-12, so a little bit better of a record than you, but not much. So in third place, I have the team you predict to win the division, the New York Jets. I just I need to see Aaron Rodgers stay healthy. And when I just look at this roster, I get it. You said injuries be damned, but we know how much of a factor injuries play. And when I just look at the Jets roster, I'm just like, there's a lot of question marks there for me. And I'm not 100% sure if Robert Sala is going to be there all season. Like,
Wow.
I'm not 100% sure. I I that seems like a bit of a shaky situation to me, just a bit. I'm I'm not saying he's going to get fired for sure, but I could see a scenario where that happens. So, in second, I've got the Buffalo Bills. And I'm going to agree with you, actually, that they missed the playoffs. Because, yes, they still have Dalton Kincaid, excuse me, um, and Dawson Knox. And they got Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. They got Shakir. They've got James Cook. But they lost a lot from their defense this offseason. And you saw in the playoffs and late into the season last year, when Josh Allen needed a big play, he either tried to do it himself or he went to Stephon Diggs. Well, Stephon Diggs is no longer there. So who's going to be that go-to guy for Josh Allen? That's a big enough question mark for me where I have him going 9-8 like you do and missing the playoffs. And then winning the division, those boys from South Florida going 11-6. I think Tua's going to finally put it together along with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and the Miami Dolphins win the AFC East.
Okay, so what do you have the Jets record at? Because I don't think you said that.
Okay, no. Um, they did win 7 games with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian and whoever else was their quarterback. But I just look at their schedule. It seems a bit iffy to me when you look at some of their opponents because they have to play the NFC North, so they have to play Green Bay, I believe, right?
They have to play.
Let me double check on this, but I believe they play Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago.
So they do play Minnesota. That I knew. They have to play the NFC West.
Okay, so they've got San Francisco, Seattle, the Rams. That those three are going to be tough teams. Whether it's in LA, in Seattle, I know they're playing in San Francisco. I think the game against the Seahawks is in New York, but nonetheless, that's a tough draw. I could see them losing to both the Rams and the 49ers. So I'm going to give the Jets 8 wins. So I've got them just finishing under 500 at 8-9.
So pretty much, I'm higher on the Jets than you are. And we both agree Miami is going to get about 11 wins. I'm just higher on the Jets than you are. And that's really our main difference.
Yes. And the other main difference is I gave the Patriots 5 wins. You gave them 2.
So let's move on to the AFC West. In this division, I have 2 playoff teams. Coming up the rear at number 4, last in this division, the Las Vegas Raiders, who, in my opinion, it's weird. I sort of want to kind of like the Raiders. They have a great receiving core. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers. They have great pass rushers. Christian Wilkins, who they got from Miami. You got Max Crosby. You got the kid Tyree Wilson they drafted a year ago. But I'm sorry, your starting quarterback is Gardner Minshew, who is going to have a defensive-minded head coach. And I like Antonio Pierce. I think he's a good rah-rah guy. But he's not Shane Steichen. I don't see in any world where the Las Vegas Raiders are competitive in this division. I like their pieces, but I think it's going to get ugly quickly. I think Devontae Adams could ask out by the trade deadline, and I think the Raiders are going to fall by the wayside late in the year. I think they finish 4-13.
Okay.
In third,
Interesting.
I have the Denver Broncos finishing 7-10. And this is, I'm not going to mention over-unders and betting because I know, Josh, you're not the biggest in the betting. But this one to me is significant because Denver's over-under is only 5.5. And I don't get it because they won 8 games last year with a guy who was cooked and let Russ cook and Russell Wilson. Now they bring in a guy out of Bo Nix who maybe is the most pro-ready even out of a Caleb Williams, out of a Jaden Daniels. He's got Sean Payton. They have decent weapons. They even just cut Tim Patrick today, who I really liked as a number 4 wide receiver. Their offensive line was actually top 10 in the league last year. And to be honest with you, even though their defense doesn't have a ton of names anymore, if you watch Denver after they gave up 70 to Miami in week 3 last year, Vance Joseph in that defense was middle of the pack the rest of the year. I'm just saying I don't think they're going to be awful. I think they're going to win games. I think they'll compete. I think Bo Nix will probably look about his ceiling, but I just think 5.5 games is way too low. I like Denver with the over, and I like Denver at 7-10.
Okay.
In second place, as the final wild card slot at 10-7, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, who I know he's been injured throughout the preseason. I get it. But Jim Harbaugh, we've seen his history. When he was at Stanford, he turned them around immediately. When he was with the Niners, he turned them around immediately. When he was at Michigan, he turned them around to a winning culture immediately. Then he finally won a national championship. I think receivers be damned. I think Lad McConkey is going to be a real standout in this offense. They bring over Greg Roman, who was the offensive coordinator with not only Jim when he was in San Francisco, but John Harbaugh for the past few years in Baltimore. They bring over Gus Edwards. They bring over J.K. Dobbins. I think they're going to be a ground and pound football team. I think Harbaugh is going to bring a real grown-up. And there may not be a bigger upgrade this year than going from Brandon Staley as your head coach to Jim Harbaugh. So I have the Chargers at 10-7. And then obviously, until somebody takes them down in the division, I have Kansas City. I have them winning the division, though I will say a lot like last year, I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, in the regular season. I don't have them getting the number 1 seed. I have them at 11-6, and I have the Chargers competing with them with the division for most of the season.
Okay. I have the Las Vegas Raiders winning the division. The Kansas City Chiefs are... No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't worry. Yeah, I have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. This is kind of obvious. They're the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. They've got Patrick Mahomes. They've got Travis Kelce. They've got Chris Jones. I believe they just re-signed Juju Smith-Schuster, so there you go.
They did.
And the Buffalo Bills stupidly made a trade with the Chiefs in the draft again. Not like that's hurt them before. And the Chiefs were able to go, hey, you're the fastest wide receiver in the draft, Xavier Worthy. We'll take you and give Patrick Mahomes another weapon. Yeah, sounds good. So I have the Chiefs winning one more game than you do at 12-5, but still winning the division. I think they end up with the number 2 seed in the AFC. Spoiler alert, the top seed in the AFC will go to a team out of the AFC South. But anyway, so, and then at number 2, I get what you're saying about the LA Chargers, but I do think the lack of wide receiver is going to hurt them a little bit. So, instead, I'm going a mile high.
Wow.
I really like the pairing of Sean Payton and Bo Nix together. It reminds me of when Sean was in New Orleans and Drew Brees was in his prime. We saw how well that pairing was, especially when uh, Drew Brees had Marcus Colston, Jeremy Shockey, Pierre Thomas, Reggie Bush. I'm not saying the Broncos are going to go win the Super Bowl or anything, but I see comparisons between them, if you will. So actually have the Broncos sneaking into the playoffs at 10 and what would that be? 10,
10-7.
10 and 7. Yes.
You
Sneak.
may be the only person in the country who has that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just telling you flat out.
I could see it logistically happening. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Broncos. And it's interesting. You mentioned Vance Joseph, their defensive coordinator. I'm guarantee you a lot of people were calling for his head after that 70-point bombshell.
I could tell you personally they were, because if you recall, the day after that game, I was in Denver, Colorado, and I was listening to Denver Sports Talk Radio, and that was what they were talking about.
So, but then, as you said, the Broncos defense really turned it around, and they put themselves in a position to possibly make the playoffs last year with a washed up Russell Wilson, who the Broncos just said, yeah, bye. And you look at their skill position player, you said it, they cut Tim Patrick, but they still have Cortland Sutton, who's a very good wide receiver. I wouldn't say great wide receiver. I'd have to look up the rest of their skill position group, but he's the main guy that stands out. And yes, they traded Jerry Jeudy to us this offseason, so we'll gladly take him. But we know Sean Payton finds a way to develop wide receivers. So yes, I have the Broncos going 10 and 7, sneaking into the playoffs. In third place, I have the Chargers just missing the playoffs, like the Jets at 9 and 8. And then, in last place, I've got the Las Vegas Raiders at 7 and 10.
So wait, you got the Raiders at 7 wins.
Yeah.
So you got that being a very competitive division then.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are saying, it's not going to be that great of a division. But look at how Antonio Pierce turned the Raiders around late in the season last year. I get it. Gardner Minshew, he's a bit of a journeyman. He's kind of become the new Ryan Fitzpatrick. But again, you mentioned like the auditions they've made this offseason. They added Christian Wilkins to pair with Max Crosby. They still have Devontae Adams. They added Brock Bowers to go alongside Michael Mayer. So I bet you see a lot of two tight end sets. They still have I believe they cut Hunter Renfrow, if I'm not mistaken.
They might have. You might be right on that.
But I think and yes, they lost Josh Jacobs, but I just don't think they're going to have as big of a fallout as people think. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a more competitive division.
I'm very interested now to see who you have record-wise, the worst record and where it stands. Because New England at 5 and Vegas at 7, I had those two teams a little bit lower on the totem pole. Okay. So we should move now.
Okay.
Go ahead, unless you wanted to add something. I'm sorry.
Well, you're going to find out who has the worst record in the AFC once we get to the AFC South.
Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to kick it off here with the AFC South. At number 4, I have the Tennessee Titans. I have them at 4-13. You probably have them, I'm guessing, if they're your last place team, I'm guessing you probably have them a little bit less wins than that. The Titans, to me, are very interesting because they bring in a new head coach in Callahan, the former Bengals offensive coordinator. They replaced Derrick Henry with Tony Pollard. They add Calvin Ridley. They pretty much paid a bag to say, don't go to New England, come here to Tennessee instead. They bring over Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. They add DeAndre Hopkins still. Their weapons are loaded. Just if you tell me who's a player for them on the defense side of the ball, Jeffrey Simmons may still be there. Besides that, I don't know. I generally do not know a Tennessee Titan defender, and I don't think Will Levis is the guy. Did not think he was the guy last year. Do not think he's the guy this year. In my opinion, the Titans may be what the Commanders were a year ago, which was we got these weapons. Let's see if Sam Howell could play. Clearly, he could not. They moved off him and dropped Jaden Daniels and had the second worst record in the NFL. I think Tennessee could be in that same boat. Now, I will say this. This division is no longer a pushover. And these next two teams, I have them basically identical at 9-8. The second place team wins because of a conference tiebreaker. I think I'm just going to go back to back here because they're really the same team. Indianapolis and Jacksonville. I had them both at 9-8. It was very hard for me to not put either one of these two teams in the playoffs. When it comes to Indianapolis, I think Anthony Richardson not playing at all last year could actually be a benefit. There's not a lot of tape on him. He did not finish a game last year. And I just think Shane Steichen's a wizard, and he's going to get the best out of that kid as long as he stays healthy. You still got Michael Pittman there. You still got Jonathan Taylor there. You still got DeForest Buckner there. Kenny Moore is still there. Their offensive line is still led by Quentin Nelson. A lot of that foundation is in place. And then I think people forget that the Jacksonville Jaguars started off 8-3 last year until Trevor Lawrence played, but he was hurt, and they just sort of fell off a cliff. And I do think there was pressure on Lawrence for whatever reason to get the ball to Ridley. I think the fact that you have Christian Kirk, your Zay Joneses, they bring in Gabe Davis from Buffalo, Evan Ingram is still there to go with Travis Etienne, Josh Hines Allen as their best pass rusher, Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach. I am not writing the Jaguars off. I would not be surprised if they are a playoff team. I think the AFC is still stacked. And then that leads me to the team that you tried to convince me all last year was better than Jacksonville, and it took you to the last game of the season to do so, but you were right. At 11-6 and being the number 2 seed in the AFC, I have the Houston Texans, who, yes, they did add Joe Mixon from the Bengals. Big upgrade. They added Stephon Diggs from Buffalo. Big upgrade. I think those are two tremendous upgrades. CJ Stroud, I think, is going to have a very good year. If he duplicates that season he had a year ago, he may be in the MVP conversation this year. My concern with Houston and why I'm not giving them 12 or 13 wins, they do have a first-place schedule. It's a very difficult schedule. And Jacksonville and Indy, I think, are going to be better than what they were a year ago, which is why I think there is a world where they could win, maybe 10 games, but I'll spot them in at 11. And again, the number 2 seed in the AFC.
All right. So, yes, I have the Tennessee Titans as the worst team in the AFC at 3-14.
Okay.
So, because yes, they got some nice weapons, but they just traded Malik Willis, and like you said, I don't know anybody on their defense unless Jeffrey Simmons is still there. And they traded Malik Willis. So what happens if Will Levis is not the guy? Who do they go to? I don't know.
2025.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. Third place is where we disagree right away. Because although I have them finishing with the same record that you gave them, and their quarterback just got a big extension this offseason, I trust the two teams ahead of them more. That's why I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing at 9-8, just missing the playoffs. I like their weapons. like you said, they have Christian Kirk, they have Zay Jones, they got Gabe Davis, they got Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, but they're outside of Josh Hines Allen, their defense is just just looks a little shaky to me, and I think that could be their Achilles heel. At number 2, I was pushing for this team to jump up in the draft and take Roma Dunze. They did not, but they've got Shane Steichen as their head coach. They've got Anthony Richardson. They've got Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr. They've got DeForest Buckner, like you said. They went and got I think it's Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So that's another weapon. So finishing at 10-7, getting into the playoffs as a wild card team, the Indianapolis Colts. And then with the number 1 seed in the AFC will run through Cape Canaveral. No, not Cape Canaveral. I'm sorry. Mission Control. There we go. The Space City. I think Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, that just adds to their running back room. You got D'Amico Ryans, another year under his belt. I like CJ Stroud. You know how high I was on him last year. Yes, they have a first place schedule, but I think the Houston Texans are going to prove that last year was not a fluke for them.
So I will say this. I don't hate anything you said. I was torn between Jacksonville and Indy. I think you're a little more down on Jacksonville than I am, even though we have them as the same record. I think Jacksonville and Indy are very similarly built. They have similar head coaches. If Houston wasn't in the division as good as they are, I would like both these teams, maybe even playoff teams.
Yeah.
Like this AFC South is not a pushover division anymore.
By the way, I didn't mention I only have Houston finishing 1 game ahead of Kansas City in terms of the number 1 seed.
So you have them at 13-4.
Yes.
I think this is my take on Houston. You could be right. Again, I think their schedule's a little bit harder than it was last year, and I think their division's better. I also think this, though, and you may disagree, if the Texans are going to make a deep run in the AFC, it may be this year and this year only. And the only reason I say that is because I think at the end of this year, Bobby Slowick is going to be a head coach in the National Football League for some team. And we've seen it. We've seen Jalen Hurts have the drop-off without Shane Steichen until he got the right OC. We've seen Justin Herbert struggle to not make the playoffs. We think he will this year now that he's got the right head coach, we think. If Houston loses Bobby Slowick and they don't have the right play caller, is there a chance where Houston's not as good next year as they are this year? I believe there is, which is why I'm saying they have to strike now, which is why they went out and they got Mixon and Diggs.
Yes. And I believe it's only a 1-year contract for Stephon Diggs.
It is.
So if it doesn't work out, okay, it was a 1-year deal. Like, it's not that big of a loss for them, I don't think. But I totally agree. If Houston's going to strike, it has to be this season. Because, yes, Kansas City still was able to win the Super Bowl last year, even though, like, everybody was down on them and they had all their receiver issues. But I still think there's an opportunity for Houston to jump ahead of them. I can't wait for that matchup when they play each other. I think it's late in
That's the week before Christmas.
Yes, and it's in Kansas City. Ugh. Don't love that for Houston, but still.
Okay, since the next division is your division, I'm going to let you decide. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go?
So in 4th place, I guess I'm going. Yes, they will still have a winning record because Mike Tomlin doesn't know how to not have a losing season. He doesn't even have that word in his dictionary. But they're going to go exactly 500. Or no, you can't do that with a 17-game schedule. I'm sorry. Um, so they'll go 9-8, just miss the playoffs, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be right now. I don't think they've officially announced whether it's going to be Russell Wilson or Justin
They
Fields.
may not till they go out on the field week 1 of the Arthur Smith revenge game.
um, and that's part of the reason why I have the Steelers finishing last, is because I don't trust Arthur Smith even as offensive coordinator. Like, is he just going to come up with all these crazy gadget plays and use players we've never heard of, like on the Steelers offense? It's going to be like, oh, there's number 72 running a jet sweep. And you're like, who the heck is number 72? I've never seen him. So, I... Again, Mike Tomlin just doesn't know how to have a losing season. You still have TJ Watt on the defensive side of the ball. We know how great he is. You still have Minka Fitzpatrick. You have Warren offensively at running back. You have George Pickens, and you have Pat Freiermuth. Maybe they're gonna have Brandon Ayuk. I have no idea what's going on with that whole thing. It seems like that whole thing has been going on for months on end. I just don't care anymore. But I'm just like, okay, you have Freiermuth, you have Warren, and George Pickens. Do you have anything else, Steelers? I'm not sure. So in third place, it's the eye of the tiger, Joe Burrow and those Cincinnati Bengals. I think this Jamar Chase situation is going to hang over their heads throughout the season, and it could be a bit of a distraction for them. I have them winning 10 games, so 10-7. But I know it's crazy, but I trust Deshaun Watson a little bit, and Lamar Jackson for obvious reasons, a little bit more than Joe Burrow. I don't know how he's going to be coming off of a major injury like he had last season with his wrist. They have to play Kansas City early. You got to play Baltimore. You got Dallas, Philadelphia. The Chargers are on the schedule. That's a tough list of opponents for Cincinnati. So, and we know how they struggle against the Browns. So, that's what I think is going to put them in third place. And in second, my hometown team, I've got the Browns. They're going to be if I have this right, they're going to be the 6th seed in the AFC. I think Deshaun Watson, I don't like that he didn't play at all in preseason. I hate that as a Browns fan because the dude had Browns fans and NFL fans and media members are all like, can Deshaun Watson get back to the Houston version of himself? And I'm like, what evidence has he shown that he can get back to that version? And people always point to the second half of the Baltimore game. I'm like, okay, do you have any other examples? And they say the Arizona game or the Tennessee game. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but Arizona and Tennessee, not much of anything. So I like what we have offensively, although Nick Chubb's going to be unavailable for the first 4 games. Not great, but I think I still like our offensive weapons: Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. I don't think our defense is going to take much of a hit with some of our losses. I am going to miss Sione Takitaki, but we still have Myles Garrett. You still have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, so the pieces are in place. But when you've got Lamar Jackson at the top of the division, I can't see the Browns winning the division. And then in first place, I think they repeat as the AFC North division winners. They'll be the number 3 seed in the AFC. It's Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens adding Derrick Henry, that's going to be a huge pickup for them because now teams can't stack the box against the Ravens. Like, okay, you want to take away Lamar Jackson? Here you go, King Henry. I do think the loss of Patrick Queen going to the Steelers is going to be a huge hole for them. So I'll be curious to see how they fill that. But I've got Baltimore winning the division.
Josh, this is not a surprise because this is probably the hardest division in the AFC to predict. But we disagree on the placement of all four teams.
Not surprising. Okay, go.
So, in fourth place, with a record of 8-9, I hate to do it, our hometown Cleveland Browns. Okay. I don't trust the Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson relationship.
That's fair. Let me just say this. I totally understand your thought process on that because, like I said, we haven't seen enough evidence of Deshaun Watson on the field. So I totally understand that. Continue.
Everything with Watson and Stefanski, and as I have said, even dating back to last year with the handling of the injury, he's going to play, he's not going to play. He goes out there, he gets concussed, goes out against Baltimore, can't hit the side of a barn in the first half, second half plays perfect, and then has a shoulder injury. It's just weird to me. Even the preseason, like against Seattle, he's going to play, then he's not going to play. It's strange to me. I don't understand it. Weapons-wise, I really like David Njoku. I like Amari Cooper. I think Jerry Jeudy's going to have a very good year. I am very concerned, and I don't think a lot of people in Cleveland are discussing this enough about the Browns' offensive line situation. I think the left and right tackle both, because it sounds like Jack Conklin's coming off PUB, but he's had no reps in preseason at all. He isn't at training camp. The right tackle situation, I mean, they could barely stand up against Seattle in the preseason. So I think that's an issue. And defensively, they had a historic year at home last year. We talked about it. They gave up 10 points a game. They gave up 30 points a game on the road. I don't think it's going to be that bad of a split. But when I look at this Browns schedule this year, to me, it is the absolute toughest schedule in the National Football League. And I even look at the home games. Dallas, the Giants, the Chargers, Kansas City, Miami, and the entire division. Though to me, the only way I see it, the Giants and Miami, just because Miami coming to Cleveland on New Year's Eve, are the only locks on that home schedule. I'm not saying they're going to go 2-7 at home. I'm just saying I think it's going to be very difficult for the Browns. I think it's going to be a very difficult season.
I could see it. I mean, you look at the road schedule, too. Jacksonville, I mean.
Week 2, by the way, in that Florida heat, that's a very difficult game early in the season.
I agree, especially coming off of what could be a very physical game against Dallas. At Washington, that could be a tough game depending on what the Commanders look like. Philadelphia, it's never easy to go into Philly and win. We know that. Playing at New Orleans, it's always
at Denver and at Vegas are always tough locations for the Browns as well. So
yeah, and then of course you have the entire AFC North, and you finish the season at Baltimore. Ugh.
So number 3, I agree with you. Even though they should not go over 500, they're going to find a way to because they're the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to finish 9-8 and third in the AFC North. Now, I agree with everything you said about Pittsburgh. The only thing I want to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I want to run down their schedule essentially in reverse. I'm going to give you starting in week 11 because they have a very hard last 8 games. 6 out of their last 8 games are all in the division. Them and the Bears have a schedule very similar to that. They have to play the Ravens at home. Then they go to Cleveland on a short week, the Thursday before Thanksgiving. Then they go to Cincinnati. Then they play the Browns again. Then they got to go to Philly. Then they got to go at Baltimore on a Saturday. They got to play Kansas City on Christmas and then finish up with the Cincinnati Bengals. That to me is at best you're looking at a 3-5 schedule, and that is a split with your division and then losing to Philly and Kansas City.
Yeah.
Then their first 8 games on the docket then at Atlanta, at Denver, home against the Chargers, at Indy, home against Dallas, at Vegas, home against the Jets, home against the Giants, and at Washington. In my opinion, the only game out of those first 9 that are guaranteed win is against the Giants in week 8. So
you're not even, wait a minute. So you're not even giving them a guaranteed win against Washington.
no, I'm not.
Interesting.
So I look at that and I say 9-8, yes, but they better start 6-3. And
Yeah.
I will also say this. I don't care, and I told you this when we first broke the news. I don't care that Mike Tomlin signed a contract extension. If things go south this year in Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin will be in the broadcast booth for one of the NFL networks next season.
Oh, wow.
I think the Steelers, a lot like New England, need a culture reset. Get an offensive guy in there, get a new quarterback. They've been spinning their wheels for the last 5 seasons. It feels like a quarterback. Do you know the last playoff game they won was that game at Kansas City when they kicked 6 field goals to beat Alex Smith?
Yeah, that was, and that was a game.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them at 9-8, just missing the playoffs. I have this next team as a wild card team. I have them at 11-6, but I do not have them winning the division. The Baltimore Ravens.
All right.
I just think there is a little bit of a regression coming here. I don't think they're going to be as dominant as they were a year ago. I think the loss of Mike McDonald, now the new head coach in Seattle, is a huge loss for Baltimore because I think he ran that defense last year, and they go to Zach Orr, who was on the staff last year, but he's the second youngest coordinator in the National Football League. Will he get the same out of that defense? Also, we talked about Joe Burrow, how he was hurt all of last year. Well, Lamar Jackson, uncharacteristically to this point in his career, stayed healthy last year. Is that going to happen again for all 17 games? I don't know. And I like the addition of Derrick Henry, but I don't think he's going to have as big of an impact as people think. I think that Derrick Henry lost a step last year. I don't think he's the same back. I don't think he has the same explosiveness. I think he'll be good in Baltimore. I don't think he'll be great. And I actually think an underrated watch for them was Odell Beckham Jr., who's now in Miami. He was really good for them last year. Will Zay Flowers and Duvernay and Isaiah Likely, along with Mark Andrews, step up to fill that role in the passing game? Again, I think they'll be good. I think they'll regress to what they were 2 years ago and not last year.
I can understand why you would say that. Totally. I think the combination of Mike McDonald and Patrick Queen not being there could be what hurts them majorly defensively.
Which brings me to the team who I believe will have the number 1 seed in the AFC this year.
Whoa!
The Cincinnati Bengals at 12-5.
Okay.
You give me, and again, this is based off health, because Joe Burrow has not been healthy the last 2 seasons. But in my opinion, Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in the league, not just the conference, behind Patrick Mahomes. A healthy Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, who is back, with Jermaine Burton out of Alabama, who will be a better Tyler Boyd, and Lou Adamaro, who will always get the best out of that defense like he has done the past few years, even though they don't have the best names on them. I'm sorry, you give me Joe Burrow in a football game, I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals. This is Burrow's first healthy offseason he's had in the past 2 training camps. Now, I know he's going off the injury, but he participated fully in camp. Remember 2 years ago, he had the appendix issue. Then last year he had the calf issue. This year he got a full training camp. Not only that, but when Joe Burrow has stayed healthy the entire season, Josh, 2 seasons he has stayed healthy. The earliest the Cincinnati Bengals have been eliminated is the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand why you would give the Bengals not only the division title, but also the top spot in the AFC. It totally makes sense to me. Um, Again, it's just I have question marks about if Joe Burrow can stay healthy because again, you talked about in the 2 seasons he did stay healthy. They went to the AFC Championship game, and they arguably should have won the Super Bowl against the Rams.
Arguably, they got hosed on a bad illegal contact call, which I thought was complete and utter bullshit.
Yes. But nonetheless, and we talked about in the regular season, I believe Joe Burrow is what, 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes?
I think he's 3-0.
In the regular season, you're right, he's 3-0, and in the postseason, he only has one loss against Mahomes.
Yes, he's 1-1, and we'll talk about the AFC playoff picture when we get back around. We're gonna go to the NFC now, and we're gonna start it off with the NFC South, and in that division, at the 4th spot, this is a team who I believe will have the worst record or tied for the worst record in the entire NFC, and it is not named the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, wow.
Can you tell me what the New Orleans Saints are? Because I have no idea what they are. I don't know what their identity is. To me, ever since Drew Brees retired, the team's gone back to being the Aints. Dennis Allen is one of the worst head coaches in the history of the National Football League. Alvin Kamara has not looked the same. Chris Olave is a nice wide receiver. To me, that's pretty much all they have on offense. I like their defense. DeMario Davis, Chase Young, who they brought over from San Francisco, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. But to me, it's not going to matter much when you can't move the football. And I think this team just needs to blow it up. I would start Spencer Rattler week 1. I thought he was better than what people thought coming out of South Carolina. He had some character issues. To me, Derek Carr looked like trash. And I defended Derek Carr for years when he was in Vegas, and he dealt with nothing but bullshit. And he looked like a quarterback that a lot of people said he was in Vegas last year in New Orleans. I don't know what the Saints are. I have no freaking clue. So that's why I have them at 4th, 3-14. I don't know what their identity is at all.
Let me just comment on that before you continue. Super quick. Because I was high on Derek Carr coming out of Fresno State. I wanted the Browns to draft him. And you're right. When he was with the Raiders in Oakland and now Las Vegas, he looked like a quarterback that you're like, okay, you can build the franchise around him. That's why Devontae Adams wanted to go into the Raiders in the first place. And now I'm just like, Derek Carr, who are you? I don't recognize this version of you. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in on that. So continue.
No, that's fine. That leads me to the 3rd place team. At 5-12, I have the Carolina Panthers. I don't think they're going to be as garbage as they were a year ago. I am wiping the slate completely clean with this team because I think nobody could win in that situation last year, not even Patrick Mahomes. I like Dave Canales. I like what he did with Baker Mayfield. He was also a part of the Geno Smith Reclamation Project in Seattle. They added Deontay Johnson at wide receiver. They still have a pretty good defense, even though they did lose Brian Burns. They also went out and they acquired Xavier Legette out of Ole Miss, who has been compared actually to A.J. Brown.
And you know who the Panthers traded with to get him? Let me think. A team that needed a wide receiver. The Buffalo Bills.
Yes. So the defense led by Phil Snow. Again, I think they'll still be good. I think Bryce Young will be better. I think they have a little bit better weapons. You know, I just think they're going to be better than what they were a year ago. I don't think they're going to be great, but I at least think they can be better than the Saints. How about that?
I'm rooting for Bryce Young. I know, like at a lot of the season last year, I said like I didn't think he was great, but I want Bryce Young to succeed with the Panthers. Like it'd be nice for the Panthers to turn it around.
In second place at 9-8, just missing the postseason after winning the division a year ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like this team. They pretty much brought everybody back. I just don't think they made any real upgrades, and I think the other team in the division made more significant upgrades. I also don't know how the loss of Dave Canales will affect Baker Mayfield. Again, I think they'll still be good. They may take a slight hitch back.
Okay.
That leads to what I believe will be the new NFC South champion, the Atlanta Falcons, who I will say this right here and right now. They will start 0-3 and they will win this division.
I mean, it's the NFC South. It's been Mount Garbage for the past few seasons, so that would not surprise me in the slightest.
So here's the thing. Their first 3 games versus Pittsburgh. We already talked about we feel like that could be a coin toss game. At Philly is going to be very tough, and obviously home against Kansas City, very tough. Like I said, they could start 0-3. After that, it's pretty much nothing but cupcakes. Dallas may be their hardest team left on that schedule. And Kirk Cousins coming back. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are passionate about Michael Penix. You know how I feel about that. I don't know how good Kirk Cousins is going to be coming off that torn Achilles. Is there a world out there where Cousins struggles and Michael Penix comes in early in the season and lights it up? Yes, I do think there is a case to be had. But I think that now Zach Robinson, who comes from the Sean McVay tree, comes from the Kevin O'Connell tree, where Kirk Cousins was at Minnesota, that's a very tight end and running back friendly tree, which is why a lot of people are making fun of Kyle Pitts. I actually think Kyle Pitts is a big year this year because Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. And I think Bijan Robinson has a bounce back year. And with the additions they have made recently with Justin Simmons at safety to go with Matthew Judon at linebacker / pass rusher, Atlanta is pretty much going all in. They made the most upgrades in the division. At 10-7, they are your NFC South champions.
So my biggest question with Atlanta, outside of Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, who are their other skill position players that they can really go to?
Well, you have Drake London, and they brought on Rondale Moore from Arizona at speedster.
Okay,
they have Algier as well out of the backfield to back up Bijan.
Sure, and maybe this is just the Arthur Smith residue, but I don't know what I'm gonna get out of Drake London. And again, that could be because of the Arthur Smith residue. And like you said, Atlanta has a new offensive system, so we'll have to see how it plays out. But anyway, we don't have too much different. The only couple things I would say are I have Carolina finishing in last, but just barely behind the Saints. Behind the Saints, because I have the Panthers going 4-13 and the Saints going just a little bit better at 5-12. I think Dave Canales will help Bryce Young take a step forward. I just think the Panthers are still a very young team. Yes, they brought in Deontay Johnson, but now that they lost Brian Burns to the New York Giants, kind of like the Tennessee Titans, I'm like, I don't know anybody on the Panthers defense. So I just think this team is so young. I'm like, they might win a couple more games, but I don't think it'll be anything drastic. And then kind of similar to what you were saying about the Saints, I have them going 5-12. I like their defense a little bit more than you do. Not too much, though. And then I'm just like, again, like I was saying when you were talking about the Saints, I'm like, Derek Carr, what happened to you? You were so promising coming out of Fresno State. I really liked him with the Raiders, as I said, and now he's come to the Saints, and I'm like, huh? So yeah, I have the Saints, and then maybe it's because of the Arthur Smith syndrome, and I I just don't know with Raheem Morris, but I have the Atlanta Falcons finishing second. I do think they make the playoffs, so I agree with you there. I've got them going 10-7, but again, I just it might be the Arthur Smith syndrome or residue there. And even though they lost Dave Canales to the Carolina Panthers, I liked how they finished the season. They pushed the Detroit Lions right to the limit in the
They did.
divisional round.
They arguably should have won that game.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite games of the playoffs last season. Both Lions home games against the Rams and the Buccaneers. But I've got Tampa Bay winning the division, getting the number 4 seed in the NFC. At I'll go 11-6.
I should have said I also have the NFC South winner Atlanta getting the number 4 seed. As we move to the rest of the divisions, just a note, the 3 division winners I have in the NFC North, West, and East all have the same record. So if that's a spoiler for you, I'm sorry, but that is where we stand on that. We are going to head now to the NFC West. Josh,
I love this division.
All right, I'll let you start. Go ahead.
Okay. I think this could be one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL. Think about it. You've got the 49ers there. You've got the LA Rams. I really am high on the LA Rams. You'll see in a minute. I really like the Seattle Seahawks. And Arizona's going to be, I think Arizona could be a more dangerous team than people think. So I'll go first. Yes, I have Arizona finishing last in this division, but I've got them going 7-10. And you know what? They could give some teams down the stretch a few scares. Because Jonathan Gannon, we've seen it. He somehow pulled a win against Dallas out of his ass last season. And then what happened? He went into Philadelphia and beat your Eagles.
Do you see this pencil? This pencil is no longer coaching my defense.
But still, the Cardinals did do that, and they drafted Paris Johnson a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken, that's his name, to beef up their offensive line. I like Kyler Murray. I don't know if there's a new Call of Duty game, so that could affect Kyler Murray's play or not. But there's just something about Arizona. They seem like they're going to be a frisky team this season. So they're not going to be a playoff team, but I think they'll give people a few scares down the stretch. They're not going to be a team you want to play late in the season. In third place, also just missing the playoffs at 9-8, led by Mike McDonald, their new head coach, and Geno Smith, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kenneth Walker. I saw them play in person last year against the Browns, the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see how they do without Pete Carroll, because he's been a stable force as their head coach for a long time, guided them to 2 Super Bowls, should have won both if they had just run the ball on the damn 1-yard line, but freaking well. But, you still I love what they have offensively with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, And like I said, Kenneth Walker, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. I think their defense is going to be much improved with Mike McDonald as their head coach. But I just think some of the other teams in the NFC are a little bit better, and that's what keeps them out of the playoffs. In second place and getting the fifth seed as a wild card team, they just won the Super Bowl a few years ago. Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers. I know they lost Aaron Donald, but I'm not dismissing the Los Angeles Rams that easily. No way. As much as I hate Stan Kroenke because he screwed over the city of St. Louis, which I wish the Rams were having this type of success in Missouri, but nonetheless, I think the Rams are going to get the 5 seed, and they are not going to be a team you want to play in the playoffs. And in first place, getting the number 2 seed in the overall NFC at 12-5, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, by the way, I have the Rams going just one loss worse than them at 11-6.
Okay, we're pretty similar. However, my fourth place team is the team that me and you have maybe debated about more than maybe any other team in the league. Now, we debated a lot in the NFC. I think the NFC is a lot harder to predict than the AFC.
Yes.
In fourth, I have the new man, Mike McDonald, and the Seattle Seahawks. I have them at 7-10. Now, Seattle, I agree with you. I love their weapons. You mentioned them, right? DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. You know, though, how I feel about the quarterback position in Seattle. And I just think they have the worst quarterback in the division. I would not take Geno over Kyler Murray right now. I would not take him over Matthew Stafford, and I would not take him over Brock Purdy. And their defense, outside of their young corners, they have Tariq Woolen, they have Devon Witherspoon. To me, it's a complete rebuild. And again, could Mike McDonald rebuild this defense in a year like he did with the Baltimore Ravens? He could, but I think this is a very hard division, and I think Seattle just comes in fourth at 7-10.
I can totally understand what you're saying.
In third, a game better. And by the way, I was back and forth. Do I do Seattle? Do I do Arizona? I'm going to put Arizona at 8-9.
Okay.
And
so I think we agree on the record there with Arizona.
We agree that Arizona, I think you said 7-10. I'm giving them 8. So pretty even. We agree they're going to be more competitive. I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to change life out there in the desert for Kyler Murray the way DeAndre Hopkins did for him in 2020. And
I think, again, it depends on whether Call of Duty is a good game or not.
And you're right. I watched Arizona going to Philly, and that game still scars my soul. Thinking about Jonathan Gannon and the way he left Philadelphia to come in there in the middle of our collapse and do that to us in our house on New Year's Eve still kills me to this day. So Arizona, I think, is going to be better. They were tied with the Packers and their division rival Rams for the most draft picks in the NFL. And most of those were on the defensive side of the ball. I think Gannon's going to get that defense better throughout the season. A lot like McDonald will. Again, I think it just comes down to, I think Kyler's worth one more than Geno at this point. The interesting thing about Arizona, I'll say this real quick as well, Josh. If you remember last year, before Kyler came back, they were in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And they decided, instead of tanking and trading away Kyler Murray and starting over for either Caleb or Jaden Daniels, they were going to keep Kyler Murray. They won games, and they still got the number 4 pick in the draft, and they got rewarded for it, arguably, if Kyler and Harrison turn out.
Yeah. I agree there.
Now, with the number 2 team in the division, I have this team at 10-7, a game worse than you. I have them as well, though, in the playoffs. I have them as the number 6 seed, the Los Angeles Rams.
Okay.
I think, again, I doubted the Rams last year because outside of Aaron Donald, who did they have in their defense? I couldn't name one person. But Raheem Morris did turn that defense around. Now, he's no longer there. He's in Atlanta. And Matthew Stafford has to stay healthy, and Cooper Kupp has to stay healthy, and we know what Puka Nacua can bring. But yes, as long as you have Sean McVay calling the plays and those guys healthy, the Rams are going to win games. And then the number 1 team in the NFC West, I have them as the number 2 seed overall, or excuse me, number 3 seed in the NFC overall. At 12-5, the San Francisco 49ers. I think the Brandon Ayuk drama could be a little slow to start the season, maybe cost them a game or two. But after that, listen, we know the deal. It's S-Bob. It's Super Bowl or bust. They literally have a Pro Bowler at every level on both sides of the ball. They're going to win a lot of games. I know there's some people that think they could regress a little bit enough to where the Rams could win the division, and I get that, but I just think they're going to want to take care of business as usual in the regular season, and as we've seen since they've gotten McCaffrey in the regular season, they're pretty unbeatable.
Yeah. My biggest thing with the 49ers is everybody's calling Brock Purdy a great quarterback. And I've even heard the term elite being thrown around with him. But my thing with Brock Purdy is, are you truly a great quarterback? Or are you just a product of the skill position players around you and being in the Shanahan offense?
By the way, I know it's just preseason and it's vanilla defenses and it should not mean a thing, but did you see Brock Purdy out there with the ones without Trent Williams? Did not look good.
No. Do you remember the game here in Cleveland?
Yes.
Yes, it was bad weather, but who was he without? He lost Trent Williams. He lost Christian McCaffrey. I believe he lost Debo, if I remember correctly. And he did not look like the same quarterback. So, again, that's my biggest question about Brock Purdy. Are you truly a great quarterback? Or are you just a system quarterback that's benefiting from the skill position players around you?
The NFC North, in my opinion, is the hardest division in football this year, maybe even harder than the AFC North. I think this division is loaded. So,
I think it got a little easier with the J.J. McCarthy injury news. Just a little, but
I tend to agree with you on that. So here we go. Number 4, last place, and a very competitive last place, 7-10. I have the Minnesota Vikings, who I would have probably bumped up to 8 or 9 wins if J.J. McCarthy would have played some of the games this season. Again, we talked about their weapons to me are the best in the division. Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, who, yes, he's going to miss a little bit of time to start the year, but he's a very good, solid tight end. And I love the addition of Aaron Jones out of the backfield for them, replacing Alexander Madison.
That's a huge I think I'll jump more into this when I go, but I think that could be a huge loss for the Green Bay Packers.
I totally agree with you, just because they also put A.J. Dillon on IR. So Green Bay's very thin at the running back position. When it comes to Minnesota, though, their defense is leaving a lot to be desired. They're going to have to outscore people. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be great. Again, is there a world out there? I said this on our last episode of Championship Rings a couple weeks ago. Is there a world out there where Sam Darnold becomes this year's Baker Mayfield? Yes. It's a very similar situation. High draft pick, bounce around the league, finds the right spot, gets a lot of weapons, wins a lot of games. I just think this division's way tougher than what the NFC South was a year ago.
Okay.
Number 3, and I know this is where we're going to disagree because you already know where I'm going.
Yep.
At 9-8.
You're already wrong, I can tell you now.
And just barely missing the playoffs.
No.
I have the Green Bay Packers. They have the third best quarterback in their own division. They have the worst running game in their own division. Weapons in totality between receivers, backs, and tight ends, they are the worst in their division. And by the way, I don't think it's close. And their defense is okay at best, in my opinion. So, I like the Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to win games. But what I want to tell you is Jordan Love last year had basically an 8-game sample size where he was a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the league. Will he be able to duplicate that for a full season? I'm not sure. I need to see it a lot like I need to see it with Brock Purdy. And so I think the Green Bay Packers at 9-8. I was very close to putting them at 10-7, but I think Minnesota gets them a game. They go to 9-8. At the number 2 spot, being the number 5 seed in the NFC playoffs at 10-7, Caleb Williams, Roma Odunze, DJ Moore, and the Chicago Bears of the Midway. Maybe it's just Hard Knocks that has hyped me up about this team, but I have never seen a team upgrade on one side of the ball the way Chicago has upgraded on the offensive side of the ball this offseason. Going from Justin Fields to Caleb Williams. Going from, Keenan Allen as a number 2 receiver. Roma Odunze as a number 3 receiver. They still have a top 10 defense ever since Montez Sweat came over. We've seen Jalen Johnson, the young corner, ticked off about not being on the top 100 list this year. He's going to be motivated to have a very good year. Shane Waldron, the former Seahawks offensive coordinator, going to be a lot better than Luke Getsy was. The only thing that worries me about this team is their head coach, Matt Eberflus. I've liked what I've seen in Hard Knocks and the order snippets. I'm not the biggest Eberflus guy, but I don't really know if it matters because I think Caleb Williams embraces the change. He knows he is the savior of the franchise. I don't think this team is getting too much hype. And yes, I think the Chicago Bears are absolutely for real, and they're going to make the playoffs in the NFC. Which leads me to the number 1 overall seed in the NFC at 12-5. Jared Goff, who you at this time last year said he might get replaced by Malik Hooker.
Hendon Hooker.
The Detroit Lions, who have pretty much brought everybody back, including both coordinators. Listen, this team, they were this close. They were arguably a Brandon Ayuk bounce off the face mask away from going to the Super Bowl last year. They redid their entire secondary in the draft. The Detroit Lions, a lot of people think they're going to fall flat on their face and not have 2 good seasons in a row. I believe in Motor City Dan Campbell, and the Lions will win not only this division, but they will have the first round bye.
Okay. The only thing we disagree about are the Packers and the Bears. That's it. Otherwise, you and I agree. I have the Minnesota Vikings in 4th. I love their skill position group with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Although, didn't Addison get in trouble with the law recently?
He did, but he's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to be suspended or anything.
Okay. Like you said, TJ Hawkinson's going to miss a few games. They picked up Aaron Jones. Again, huge loss for the Green Bay Packers. I don't know why the Packers cut him in the first place. But, again, you have Kevin O'Connell. We've seen what he can do as head coach. The Vikings won the NFC North when I don't know anybody who picked them to win the NFC North a couple years ago. I certainly didn't. But with the loss of J.J. McCarthy, who I feel like they were going to kind of build their offense around, and going to Sam Darnold, it just feels like a downgrade that they can't quite overcome. But I'll give them still 6 wins. So I think that's 1 less than you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay. In third place, yes, they got Caleb Williams. I love their skill position group. It's nothing to do with the Chicago Bears because I think they're going to be a very good team. I just think Green Bay is just a tad better, just a tad. So I've got Chicago just missing the playoffs at 10-7, just missing.
So wait, at 10 wins in the NFC, you have them missing?
Just by a smidge.
That's where we disagree. Because spoiler alert, my 7th playoff team is from the NFC East, and they have 9 wins.
Okay. Wait. Let me. No, I have Chicago making the playoffs. I'm sorry. I do have them making the playoffs as the 6th seed. Yes.
Okay.
Or no, 7th seed. 7th seed.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
7th seed. All right. So yes, Chicago makes it as the 7th seed, and then coming in as the number 6 seed, Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. I'm a little bit higher on the Packers than you are. I love what I saw out of Jordan Love, but the loss of Aaron Jones, losing A.J. Dillon, I just don't know if they can count on Josh Jacobs the entire season. I like what they have at wide receiver with Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson. So I like that, but and Luke Musgrave at tight end. But the running back position being a little bit murky, I think hurts them. So I've got them all at 11-6, so just a game better than the Bears. And then, like you, the number 1 seed in the NFC at 13-4, those Motor City Kitties, the Detroit Lions. I was wrong about Jared Goff. I'm not afraid to admit Jared Goff completely proved me wrong last season. But think about it. You got Aiden Hutchinson, who could win Defensive Player of the Year this year. Spoiler alert there. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorite wide receivers in the league. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. And I think Dan Campbell's going to bring that same energy to the Detroit Lions. He's not going to let them be satisfied with what they did last season. He's going to make sure they have a chip on their shoulder again. So I think the Lions win this division and they get the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Before we go to the NFC East, I do want to clarify something about your NFC predictions because maybe I didn't hear you right. But did you have Atlanta and Tampa both making the playoffs as well?
No, I have Atlanta winning the division, Tampa missing. So I have my wild cards as LA, Green Bay, and Chicago.
Okay, I thought you said Atlanta second and then Tampa wins the division.
I believe I did.
Okay. So, with that, let's get to my division, the NFC East. Here we go. I think this is universal. Last place. Probably to me, right next to the Saints, but I think they're going to have a worse record. The New York garbage football New York Giants. What are they? They lost Saquon Barkley. They have a good defensive line. I'll give them that. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns now. Besides that, they're nothing. I think they win 2 games. They're competing with the Patriots for the number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. We can move on from the Giants.
I can tell you now, we agree there. I actually have the Giants definitively as not just the worst team in the NFC, but the worst team in the NFL.
Okay. Number 3. I have been teasing this for weeks on this show. The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, please explain this one.
The Dallas Cowboys, I have just said, outside of CeeDee Lamb, are a pop gun offense. Let's take a look at Dallas's first 8 games, 8 weeks. It would be about 7 games on the docket. They have to play the Cleveland Browns week 1. They have to go to Baltimore in week 3. They have to go to Pittsburgh in week 5. Then they have to play the Lions in Dallas, as well as San Francisco in San Francisco after a bye. They have the Saints and Giants in between there. Those should be wins. If they start the season 2-5, I think there's a chance Mike McCarthy does not make it to that bye week. And again, I think this is all sabotagey by Jerry Jones when it comes to Dak Prescott. I think the loss of Dan Quinn is Washington's gain. I don't think Mike Zimmer is going to be as good as a defensive coordinator. And there's a lot of noise in that Dallas Cowboy organization. I think they go 9-8, but because of a division tiebreaker, they will not be second and they will not make the playoffs.
Wow. So I can tell you now, well, I kind of just spoiled it, but yes, I agree. The Dallas Cowboys will miss the playoffs this season.
So that means my final wild card spot in the NFC, this could be the shocker of the whole league. JD Daniels and the Washington Commanders.
I like it.
Do sneak into the playoffs at 9-8. They are the team that, as a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I am most scared of. And Josh, let me throw something at you. To me, they have similar, not as talented, but similar ingredients to what the Houston Texans had a year ago. A rookie quarterback with a defensive-minded head coach. Good weapons, but we don't love their weapons, but they have good weapons.
Who do they have, though, outside of Terry McLaurin?
Well, you know what? I liked Terry, and before they actually traded away the receiver to Philly the other day, I liked him.
Jahan Dodson. Yeah.
John Dodson. They have other guys in there. They have Zacchaeus, who was in Philadelphia last year. So like Houston, a bunch of guys in sort of that rotation. And then their defense is going to be a mess, but I think Dan Quinn's going to get it better to what Ron Rivera had it a year ago, and you still have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen on that defensive line.
Okay.
That leads to the number 2 seed in the NFC, once again at 12-5. Again, the way all the tiebreakers wake out is Detroit number 1, Philly number 2, San Francisco number 3 in the NFC. I think my Philadelphia Eagles are in for a bounce-back year. Brian Johnson is gone. Coach Pencil is gone. Vic Fangio is in. Kellen Moore is in. And Jalen Hurts, maybe the most impressive stat of the offseason, only threw 1 interception, and that was on his last pass of the entire training camp. The offense, from all reports, looked different. A lot of motion. And even though they did lose Jason Kelce and they did lose Fletcher Cox, I think Jordan Davis is going to step up. I like Milton Williams. I like Jalen Carter up front. I think Cam Urges is going to be very good at center. Reminds me a lot of Jason Kelce. And this team rebuilt their secondary in the draft. Quinyon Mitchell, as well as the defensive back out of Iowa, who, again, you're going to have Darius Slay in there. You're going to have Ringo in there. Reed Blankenship is still in there. They bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Detroit Lions. I just think Philly's in for a bounce-back year. I think they put the collapse behind them. They, to me, easily pull away here in the NFC East. So I think Washington will give them a little bit of a fight maybe towards the end of the season.
So, again, I agree. The Giants will be you and I agree about the Giants. I have them as flat out the worst team in the NFL. Winning no more than 3 games at most. I'll give them 3, but that's it. At number 3, just because I don't know who else they really have outside of Terry McLaurin now that they traded Jahan Dodson. I love Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn, I think he's going to come in and really help that defense. But because of the uncertainty of the skill position group, that's why I have the Washington Commanders finishing 3rd. And then in 2nd, but missing the playoffs, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. This is it for Dak Prescott. It's all or nothing this year. You haven't gotten your extension yet. You got to go prove it. Mike McCarthy, you and I are on the same page. If they get off to a slow start, I don't know if he's making it to that bye week. So, and then in first place, as the number 3 seed in the NFC, at 12-5, so just behind San Francisco. I've got the Philadelphia Eagles. I like that they brought, again, much like you said, I like that they brought in Vic Fangio. They got rid of Matt Patricia. I have no idea why they gave him defensive coordinator duties in the first place. That was a mistake right from the beginning. We'll see how Kellen Moore does, because I do think it's interesting that he got removed from Dallas, then he left the Chargers. So it's interesting that he's in his third stop. So I do have a little bit of a question mark about that. But again, you got A.J. Brown. You got Devontae Smith. You got Dallas Goedert there. You got Saquon Barkley. And again, I don't know how teams keep allowing Philadelphia to just go, oh, you're the best defensive player. We'll take you. I don't get it. Because if I remember correctly, didn't you go and get Cooper DeJean in the draft?
We did. That was the kid out of Iowa. I was blanking his name. That's my bad.
Yeah. You got the guy out of Toledo.
Quinyon Mitchell, yep.
Yep, Quinyon Mitchell. You keep making trades with the Tennessee Titans, and for some reason they keep agreeing to it. Because Kevin Byard is still there, right?
No, he's in Chicago.
Oh, okay, never mind.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson came back from Detroit to fill that void.
Okay, that's, for some reason I thought Kevin Byard was still there. But yes, you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back from Detroit. You got Nolan Smith there. I do think the loss of Jason Kelce could hurt you in the locker room, especially because he was really that veteran guy. So I do wonder about your locker room being a little bit younger now, but still, I think the Eagles are in for a bounce back season.
Okay, so we have gone through our entire AFC East through South, NFC East through South, which means it is time now to go through the playoff picture. So I think the easiest way to do this is for like me to do the AFC, and then Josh, you do the AFC, then I'll do the NFC, you do the NFC, and then we'll do the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So for my AFC playoff picture, just a quick recap again. Cincinnati, I have the 1 seed, so they will get the bye. The Chargers will be going to Houston in the wild card round. Baltimore goes to Kansas City in an AFC championship rematch in the wild card round, which then leads the Miami Dolphins will be at the New York Jets. And in a very interesting facet, not only will that be a divisional game, third time they play, this will actually be a Week 18 rematch that will also be in New Jersey.
Okay.
With that being said, the results of that games are the Texans will defeat the Chargers, Kansas City will defeat Baltimore again, and the Jets and Aaron Rodgers do get a playoff win because Tua Tagovailoa will not be able to play out in the cold again, which will set up the 4-seed New York Jets in the jungle against the 1-seed Cincinnati Bengals, where Joe Burrow will get the best of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' season does come to an end for the New York Jets. And in a rematch of that game you mentioned earlier on between Kansas City and Houston, this one would actually take place in Houston. I think the Texans actually would have beat the Chiefs in Kansas City earlier in the season, and I think Kansas City gets their revenge here in Houston to set up for the third time in 4 years.
I'm down with this.
except this one's in Cincinnati. Mahomes, Burrow, AFC Championship game in the jungle, and Patrick Mahomes breaks the Bengals fans' hearts again in a very close game, a walk-off touchdown at the buzzer, and the Kansas City Chiefs will try to, as Cody Rhodes did at WrestleMania 40, finish their story and three-peat.
Okay. So I've got the Houston Texans as the 1 seed getting the bye. The number 2 seed, I've got the Baltimore Ravens. They will be hosting. Who did I have? Oh, yeah, the New York Jets. Yeah, the Jets. I believe I had the Jets at 5, if I'm not mistaken. And then at the number 3 seed, that's where I've got the Miami Dolphins. I had to think about that for a second. They'll be hosting the Indianapolis Colts. And then the number 4 seed.
Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. Kansas City. Wait, that makes no sense. Kansas City's the 2 seed. I'm sorry. I completely screwed that up.
I don't even think you have the Jets making the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely fucked that up. I'm sorry. I have Houston as the 1 seed. Kansas City as the 2 seed. There we go. Baltimore as the 3 seed.
Miami as the 4 then.
Yes, Miami as the 4 seed. That's correct. And then the number 5 seed is Indianapolis. So they would be at
Miami.
Yes. And then number 6, I've got the Browns. Yep. And they will be at
Baltimore.
Yep. And which would, like you, would be a Week 18 rematch. And then the number 7 seed, that's where I have the Denver Broncos.
Oh, yes. Okay. And you have them at Kansas City, another division rematch.
Yes. So then I've got Kansas City being Denver because it's Patrick Mahomes. And then with Indianapolis at I keep forgetting this. I should have written
Indy at Miami.
Indy at Miami. Miami's at home. I got Miami. And then the 4 at 5 is.
Well, no, that was your 4 or 5. 3-6 was Browns Ravens.
Browns Ravens. As much as I want to put Deshaun Watson in there, it's Lamar at home. So I think all the division winners hold firm in the wild card round.
So to help you out, that sets up Miami at Houston and then Kansas City, Baltimore at Kansas City.
Yes. And Houston, this is where Miami's season comes to an end. Houston wins, goes to the AFC Championship, and in the other round, Lamar Jackson leads the Baltimore Ravens into Kansas City and beats Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
Meaning it will be the Baltimore Ravens against the Houston Texans in the AFC Championship. I'd love to put Houston in the Super Bowl, but not this year. Not with John Harbaugh as the Ravens head coach. Yes, they lost Mike McDonald. Yes, they lost Patrick Queen. But I've got the Baltimore Ravens going to the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
Okay. NFC time. So to recap, in my NFC standings, I have the Lions as the number 1 seed. I will have Philadelphia hosting Washington in another divisional game in the wild card round, as well as San Francisco hosting the Rams in another divisional game, and then Chicago going to Atlanta. And if you want to be technical, I have Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and again, if you want to be technical, Michael Penix, 3 rookies in the NFC, all making the playoffs.
It could happen, yeah.
In those wild card games, I have Philly beating Washington. I think they split in the regular season. I think Philly will get the best of Washington in the postseason. I think in the regular season, San Francisco would have swept the Rams because we all know Shanahan just owns McVay. But I think McVay gets the best of the Niners, and down go the Niners in the wild
Whoa!
card round from Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. And then I think Caleb Williams makes a big impression on his first playoff game in Atlanta. We all know how Kirk Cousins is in primetime. And I think the Chicago Bears upset the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC wildcard round, which
Okay.
then in the divisional round sets it up where Caleb Williams' season will come to an end in Philadelphia, and a rematch of last year's wild card round, a rematch of week 1 this year. Rams, Lions, Stafford, Goff, same place, same venue, Ford Field, Detroit, Michigan. The Philadelphia Eagles will be traveling to Detroit for the NFC Championship game as the Lions and Jared Goff do pull it out.
Okay.
And in Ford Field, Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions will, unfortunately for me, knock off my Philadelphia Eagles, and Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions will have a rematch from week 1 of this prior season against the Kansas City Chiefs. The game that we should have arguably had this Super Bowl will happen in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59.
Oh wow. I'll tell you now, the Super Bowl I am wishing for is Detroit against Houston. I think that would be such a fun Super Bowl. Down in New Orleans, you have two teams, two cities that have never been to the Super Bowl. That would just be such a fun game. I don't think it's going to happen now. So, in the NFC, as my number 1 seed, again, you and I agree, it's the Detroit Lions. Number 2 seed, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. Number 3 seed, Philadelphia. Number 4 seed, Tampa Bay. So basically the same as this season, except for Detroit is the 1 seed instead of San Francisco, and Philadelphia is the number 3 seed rather than Dallas, even though they were the number 7 seed. And my number 5 seed, that would be the LA Rams. The number 6 seed, the Green Bay Packers. And the number 7 seed, the Chicago Bears. So in the wild card round, that sends Caleb Williams and the Bears to San Francisco, which I would love to see the Bears pull it off against the 49ers, but not quite yet. I think the 49ers defense is a little too tenacious, and they get the better of the Chicago Bears. And then you've got let me see if I can remember this. Oh, yeah, Packers taking on the Eagles.
Week 1 rematch from Brazil.
Yes, I think this is going to be a fantastic game. I would love to see the Green Bay Packers pull it off like they did last year. But again, the Eagles, they always seem to figure it out with their defense, except for the end of last season. I'll give them that. But they should have won Super Bowl 57. We know they have a winning culture. Again, I have questions about Green Bay's running back room with the loss of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. So Philadelphia wins that. And then the big one that I'm very interested in. You got the number 5 seed, the LA Rams, going to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Rematch of that fantastic, I believe it was a divisional round game a couple years ago, right? Divisional round?
Yes.
Yes. Where I don't know what happened with the Buccaneers, but they fell asleep defensively. And it will happen again.
Wow.
The Rams will go into Tampa and beat the Buccaneers. So give me my divisional round based on that.
So your divisional round then would be Philly at San Francisco, the Rams also going to Detroit,
Yes.
like I have.
Uh-huh. And God, I would love to see the Rams play the Lions in the divisional round, although I would like it more in the NFC Championship. But again, like they did last year, the Lions will pull this off, get to the NFC Championship game where they will it will be a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. It will be the San Francisco 49ers. But this time, it's going to be the Lions. So, like you, I've got the Lions. And for my Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens going against Jared Goff, Dan Campbell, and the Detroit Lions.
So for both our Super Bowls, we have a little bit of finishing the story. On my end, can Kansas City repeat? Can Detroit finally break through? On your end, can Lamar Jackson finally break through versus will Detroit finally break through?
That's right.
So the winner of Super Bowl 59 will be many disappointed Taylor Swift fans because the Kansas City Chiefs will not be repeating. Jared Goff, the number one overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, finally wins a Super Bowl after making one with the Rams and looking awful in it against New England. He is the savior of the Detroit Lions franchise, and my good buddy Jalen Sandbeck, who's been on this show a ton, big Detroit Lions fan, will finally get his first Lombardi trophy.
Dude, I'm not even a Lions fan. I'm a Browns fan, as you see. But if the Lions were to win, I might cry. Just because that would just be amazing to see. But do you remember the last time the Baltimore Ravens played the Super Bowl in New Orleans?
Yes, I do. It was the wild game where the lights turned off. They were dominating in the first half. Colin Kaepernick comes back in the second half. A questionable non-PI call in the back of the end zone that many Niners fans say cost them another Super Bowl.
Yep. It's going to be a nail biter again. I don't know if the lights are going to go off and all that stuff again. But sorry, Lions fans. It's going to be Lamar Jackson hoisting the Lombardi trophy. I hate to say that as a Browns fan because the Ravens are the team I hate the most in the AFC North. But I think there's just something about John Harbaugh being the head coach for the Ravens in the Super Bowl down in New Orleans. We've seen this from the Ravens. Nobody expected them to win the Super Bowl in 2012, and they did it. I'd have to go back, but I don't remember a lot of people picking the Ravens to win the Super Bowl in 2000 when they had that amazing defense and stuff. But so the Ravens kind of do this where they come out of nowhere, essentially, and pull these runs off. Yes, they're one of the top teams people are talking about, but I've got them winning the Super Bowl.
All right. We have just gone almost 2 hours going for our full NFL predictions for the divisions, but we're not done yet because we got to talk awards, Josh. And I know how much you don't like the quarterback award to go as an MVP as much, but I think it's going to happen again this year. In my opinion, your 2024 NFL MVP will be the number one seed in the AFC for me. It's the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, Joe Burrow, who will impress voters enough coming off his injury, having another spectacular season. And if he leads the Bengals to the number one seed in that tough conference, I think he gets the MVP.
You and I are on almost the same page, except I have CJ Stroud winning it this year.
Okay.
But same thinking. Number one seed, beat Patrick Mahomes to do it, CJ Stroud.
The next award we are going to be doing is the Offensive Player of the Year award. And I think he finally gets to 2,000 yards receiving. I think it's going to be Tyreek Hill this year, who has another monster year for the Dolphins. The NFL does not like to do, MVP and Offensive Player of the Year award on the same team, same conference, same position, if you will, same player. So I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill.
I'm also going with a wide receiver, but he's from the NFC, from the Detroit Lions.
Okay, I like it.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. We saw how much Jared Goff went to him last season. I think he continues to build that chemistry with Jared Goff, and he wins Offensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. I know you spoiled it a little bit earlier. Spoiler alert. I think that we have the same guy here. Aiden Hutchinson from the Detroit Lions.
Yes, which means for me, the Lions pick up both Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year.
With that, we will now move to the offensive and defensive rookies of the year. Now, offensive for me was pretty difficult. You got a lot of offensive players I think it could be in the conversation, but I think the number one overall pick, he's going to get the Bears to the playoffs. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams, but there's a couple other guys I could clearly see winning this award.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I wish I could disagree with you, but you look at what he's done in preseason, and you're just like, yeah, he's going to be really good. So, Caleb Williams.
I could see it being Jaden Daniels. I could see it being Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think Caleb's just going to be too good and not give him the award.
Yeah, I think the fact that we both have Chicago getting to the playoffs is what pushes him over the edge.
For Defensive Rookie of the Year, now this was tough because, as you know, the first defensive player was not picked till 14th off the board. I'm actually going to go with a corner. I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold, the Detroit Lions' first-round pick, who I think will change their secondary out of Alabama.
Okay. So you have the Lions picking up Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
Okay. I'm also going with a cornerback from the AFC and the team I just picked to win the Super Bowl, Nate Wiggins from the Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh, I like it.
I know they lost Mike McDonald, but these are the Ravens. They seem to figure it out defensively.
And then we got to go Coach of the Year. Now, as you know, Coach of the Year oftentimes doesn't go to the coach with the best record. It goes to maybe like the most improved coach, the guy with the most improved team. For that reason, I'm actually going to stick with the Bears theme here. I'm going to go with Matt Eberflus. He could get fired. He could win Coach of the Year. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I am going Coach of the Year.
All right. I could see it going to D'Amico Ryans, given that I have the Texans getting the number one seed. But I'm actually going to go in a bit of a different direction. I'm going to head to Indianapolis.
I like it.
Shane Steichen. He revitalizes Anthony Richardson, gets that offense firing, and he wins Coach of the Year for the Colts.
And our final award will be the first coach fired.
I'm not sure this is an award people want to win.
I think it's down to two people. I think it's down to Mike McCarthy, and it's the guy that I am going to pick, Dennis Allen of the New Orleans Saints. Again, I don't know what they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know why he's a head coach. I think they're going to be a disaster, and he will be hopefully fired for their sake pretty damn quickly.
So my pick, he just won head coach of the year a couple years ago, beat the Vikings in the playoffs, but they're going to be horrible this season. They still have Daniel Jones as their quarterback. Why? I don't know. Brian Daboll.
See, I don't know about Daboll because I feel like the Giants like him. And he is a smart offensive coach. He did get Daniel Jones in the playoffs, like you said.
Yeah, but again, we both think they're going to be absolutely horrible.
True. All right. Well, we're gonna move on. We are done with NFL predictions. We're gonna preview Bash and Berwin. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, Josh, because we're already 2 hours into this show. So, anything you want to talk about, just go ahead and fire away.
As much as the strap match is going to be interesting, I'm most excited for this mixed tag team match. Liv and Dom versus Rhea and Priest. This is not the match I thought they were going to do. I I thought they were going to do a mixed tag, but I actually thought they were going to do Finn and Rhea, or I'm sorry, Finn and Liv versus Rhea and Priest. But it does make sense at the same time why they're doing Liv and Dom. But I think this is just going to be shenanigans central with the rest of Judgment Day getting involved. But it's going to be a hard-hitting match because you can tell Liv and Rhea are going to end up going to Hell in a Cell. It's so obvious. And out of all the presumed Hell in a Cell matches, that's the one I'm most excited about, which is funny because I haven't really been too invested in this feud, but now I really am. But I'm so excited for this mixed tag team match.
So I'm the one in our West Championship Ring show when we recap SummerSlam. I told you this was the match they were going to do at Bash and Berwin. I think there's going to be some shenanigans involved where Rhea and Dom will win somehow, and Rhea will want her revenge inside Hell in a Cell. And I agree with you. The feud's been great and everything like that. Though it's not the match I'm most looking forward to on this card. I think there's a lot of, I don't think there's one bad match on the card. Bianca and Jade versus Holy Union or whatever they are. It's whatever. But the other four, are going to be bangers in my opinion. Shout out to Sheamus. The match I'm most looking forward to on this card is the match that I think will be the main event of this show for the World Heavyweight Championship, the rematch for Night of Champions, the Viper Randy Orton, the Ring General Gunther about to slap meat the way Bronson Reed slammed Braun Strowman through a car. These guys are going to hit hard. They're going to get heavy. It's going to be another classic encounter, and I can't wait for it.
I'm actually surprised they made this Gunther's first feud. I thought they would hold it off until later down the line. But I'm not upset about it by any means. But because of everything at their previous match, I thought they would hold it off until a little bit later in Gunther's title reign.
Let me ask you this question as we move to the WWE Championship match. Are we going to get a heel turn from Kevin Owens after this match?
We very well could. I really haven't been impressed with Cody's title reign at all since he won the title from Roman Reigns. And it sucks because, you saw it during the intro. I was pissed that The Rock stole Cody's moment.
Shout out to the new intro.
Yes. And ever since he won the title, I'm just like, Like Solo Sikoa, mid-Carter. Logan Paul, mid-Carter. Like the first AJ feud was okay. His best feud has been the second AJ Styles feud. And it'll be a good match. Cody's gonna win, retain the title, and Solo Sikoa's like, yeah, I got next. I'm like, I don't want to see that match again.
I've always been a bigger fan of KO as a heel than a babyface. I was the biggest fan of the prize fighter when he first came in, defeated John Cena the first night. I missed the pop-up powerbomb as a finisher. I liked it a lot better for him than the stunner. I want to see
He's been
that.
doing the pop-up powerbomb more recently.
And I want to see a full badass heel turn Kevin Owens, because Sami Zayn is coming over to SmackDown eventually, but he's going to be dealing with the bloodline. Him and Kevin Owens needs to be done with the bloodline. He needs to move on to his own thing. Maybe have a feud with LA Knight over the United States Championship, which I think would be terrific. And I think Kevin just needs a bash Cody in the head after he loses this match.
Yeah, but then does that mean you get a rematch at Bad Blood?
You could and make it not a Hell in a Cell, but a stipulation.
Like a no DQ match or something.
Yeah, and then it gets Cody to Survivor Series, where you already know my thoughts on that.
Yes. You know what? My Bash in Berlin feels like? It feels like a story builder premium live event.
Yes. And
Because
by the way, most of the matches are pretty much it's Raw exclusive outside of Kevin and Cody, really.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, Bad Blood. If they do the matches I'm thinking they're gonna do, oh, that's gonna be good. I just don't know. I don't think if they do Finn Balor versus Damian Priest, I don't think you can do a regular match with that. I think you have to do some type of stipulation. Maybe you could justify doing Hell in a Cell, but I'm thinking
I don't think that. I think they're gonna save the Hell in a Cell for Punk McIntyre and Liv and Rhea.
Okay, we've seen them do 3 Hell in a Cell
Yeah,
matches.
but not in this new era.
True.
So I do think you can do Priest and Balor without a stipulation. Maybe we get Rollins against Brunson Reed. If Rollins comes back, that'd be a fun match.
Yeah. I bet you could do Cody, Kevin Owens again if you get the heel turn like you suggested in like a no DQ match or something.
And probably Braun and Jey Uso probably will win the Intercontinental title tournament and get that shot. That's a 5-match card.
Yeah. But my only thing is with like a premium live event called Bad Blood, I want rivalries on there. You know, yes, you're going to have Punk, McIntyre, Rhea Liv, but like Braun versus Jay isn't really a rivalry, like with a lot of hatred and stuff. So I don't want them to like just, yeah.
Regardless, I think it's going to be a very fun show. And with that, we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap it up for tonight, our over 2-hour season premiere of Championship Rings. We're going to go ahead, and I think I'm just going to decide this now. We're going to clip these over multiple days, I think, into uploading everything at once because it's going to take a while to download all the predictions. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be here every Tuesday night with you. Josh, next week, we are actually going to talk week 1. I know we're probably going to talk college football as well. There's a big game this weekend between Clemson and is it Clemson, Georgia? I think so.
Yeah, Clemson, Georgia. And next week, you've got Texas at Michigan.
Yep.
So, and
Can't
we also
wait.
have Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
So, with that, football season's back. We're back. This is Championship Rings, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Sounds good.